So Erica is a local purveyor of coffee. Your family farm is in Guatemala, and she's going to talk to us about her business. So I thought, as we introduce you, you probably want to tell your story, right, about your coffee farm, the family farm, how it all came together, and what your plan is for your sustainable.
Tell us a little bit about you and your operation and what you do, and
sure.
Kind of introduce yourself.
On this slide, you'll see it says about 90. It says 90 years, and I think I undercut it. Then we're learning as we go, but and it's been about 10 years since I put that presentation together. So the farm's been in our family for over 100 years. The last people to cultivate the coffee, roast, and sell it at market were my great-grandparents. My dad grew up working summers and harvest seasons on the farm, and then did what lots of farm family kids do. He was like, no thanks to farming. He got a civil engineering degree, met my mom through KU study abroad program, and then eventually moved the family here. I like to say I was conceived in Guatemala, but raised here. But my parents always did their best to get us back to Guatemala. We'd go for Christmas every year, every other year. I spent summers there and have always felt a real affinity for my family, for the land, for the culture. And I studied ethnobotany and anthropology in college. And it was then that I fell in love with coffee shops, and that I started dreaming of doing something with our land. At that time, it was my grandma just stewarding the land, and I always say, like, our beans got sold to like Folgers or something, just like it was still producing coffee, but there wasn't a lot of care. We'd harvest every year, and so about 12 years ago now, which is crazy to say, we started in earnest having these conversations with my brothers and my dad. And then about 10 years ago, my dad retired, and so he started to spend a lot more time down there. And for a long time, I just called it like our family passion project. We'd bring like 200 pounds over in our suitcase, when we were coming back from Christmas vacation, or my dad would bring it back. He actually lost a whole, I think it was 300 pounds one year, because they had kept warning him, like, we know you're not just bringing this for personal use. You can't bring this much. And then he actually flew to Canada to try and do it differently, and they still seized the coffee. So we had to find a new way to bring it over. Here we are, fast forward. The first year we brought like a major batch, and the first time I started roasting and considering this like a real business, a sustainable business for our family, was through the pandemic. Lots of people were like, I think I want to do things differently, and that was definitely true for us. And so that's when I started roasting. I still do this I still work part-time in another context, and I'm kind of in that like small business pain point, and have been now for 3 years, of like, how do I grow? I'm not really in a place to hire anybody, but I need to do more to grow, to make it more sustainable. So my little one, my dad has been really patient with me. He's said when my little one goes to school, that's when I can get started. And he just started kindergarten this fall. So time's ticking now, and time to kind of grow into the next level of our business, which I really see as amping up our roasting production. Right now we have 2,000 pounds sitting in Houston. We do the importing ourselves. That's another aspect of the business that we really need to figure out how to do it in a way that makes more sense. Every year it feels very risky. Every year it looks differently, but we don't want to work with an importer that's going to take so much of our very small margin on our very small farm. My motivation when I started, and it's still true, is just really, how do we honor this blessing that we have. You know, we are the stewards of the land, not the owners of the land. How do we honor the work that happens on the land, the people that labor on the land? How do we do our best to give back to the land and treat it with respect, and, you know, hopefully make sustainable living for our family in a really equitable way. And we're still kind of at that like very small family business farm stage. And here I have, you know, the privilege, and sometimes mental load of living here in the United States, but where a market for good coffee is. And so that's really my growth edge right now, is how do I market in a way that feels authentic and doesn't feel like it's exploiting our story or making too much of our story, but it's just really honest and can find the people that are willing to pay above market rate for really quality coffee. And there's so many barriers, and I don't know, I'm rambling, but it's complicated. It's quite complicated. It's quite complicated. Yeah.
Touch a little bit more on those barriers that you talked about that's making it difficult. What are some of those barriers for your business?
Yeah, well, I think one is commodity trading. You know, the coffee bean, just as waters are now traded, water futures traded on the stock market. I can't wrap my head around it. I just fundamentally think it's not right. And we lose total connection to what actually happens on the ground. But that drives prices down. So people can, you know, lots of people drink coffee every morning, and the majority of them, and I understand too, right? It's like we're all trying to survive under capitalism. None of us here created it. None of the small coffee business owners in Kansas City created the problem, but they want to pay as little as possible for the bean. And so it makes it really hard for me to come and say, hey, pay more because mine is better and because it's good for the, you know. And I also am somebody who shops at the supermarket. I don't go to the farmer's market for all my needs. So I understand. So that's complexity number one, just the system. And then the various systems that are built on top of that. So there's layers of middlemen and middle people in between. I don't know of anyone locally doing exactly what I know. Revo Cup comes really close and develops good relationships. I wish they could have been here because I was excited to learn more about their operation, where it's literally just my dad and the people that work with him. We import it ourselves. I roast it and I sell it, literally from seed to cup coffee. And it's and I've learned over the years why there are so many middlemen. It's very complicated. You have to, the majority of the work happens on the farm. And even when I talk about my business, I feel like I forget sometimes and feel somewhat disconnected from what my dad is doing. And I just always want to bring it back to that. It's an extremely labor-intensive crop. There's so much risk every year. Global warming has just made it harder. It's a hand-picked crop. You know, you have to, if you're doing high-quality coffee like we are, it's multiple pickings, multiple washings. So that's complicated in and of itself. Then we built a drying patio. We have a pulping machine, which you'll see back there. But we don't have the big machine processes to take the parchment off, which is like the outside of the bean. And we learned the hard way one year. My dad was like, we'll just take it off in the States. So we shipped it here, didn't realize how much extra weight we unnecessarily shipped it here, and then couldn't find anywhere to mill it and get the parchment off the beans. I still have 2 bags in my basement, and it's a point of contention between my dad and I, because he's like, if you were really serious, you'd be doing it by hand. And I'm like, I just do not have the time to do that. And actually I'm working with a farmer friend who's like come up with he has another friend who has some equipment. I don't know. We're trying to figure it out still, but it's like years later. Yeah. So yeah, just the layers of complexity, and then markets here. And then one thing that I want to add to the layer of complexity is Specialty Coffee Association, which I think it's great to have governing bodies or bodies like that help to articulate quality or standards to protect the consumer. And it becomes like any bureaucracy, like a political game, and who you know, and like what's trendy. And so specialty coffee would not label my coffee specialty. And so I've talked to people who would, coffee shops who would pay a premium for beans, but they won't pay a premium for mine because I don't have the clout, the money, the hoops to jump through. And yet you cannot tell me my coffee's not specialty. And you can try it. I brought a little. It's great. It's special as it comes. So that's another barrier.
You're talking about like the pickers and the growers. Like who are the people doing like that picking and the processing for you? What are their lives like? Where do they come from?
Yeah, there are people that have lived and worked in the area of our farm for their whole lives. Giovanni is like I don't even know what to call him. He's Giovanni. He like really runs the farm. And is there every day taking care of the everyday needs. My dad is there every day too. My dad is 74, which is another consideration of our family business. And the young people that live and work around the farm, some of them are mothers, some of them are like young, there's a lot of young boys, some older men. We have a crew, depending on what season. Giovanni he has his own plot of land that's just across the street, and he farms and has corn and has a lot of stuff, and is just like a full-time farmer. He's on the farm year-round. I think he has, depending on what the needs are, 1 or 2 people that work with him throughout the year. And then during harvest time, they work all around Guatemala. I mean, coffee's an industry in Guatemala, so they work on different coffee farms. They work on different crops throughout the year. And that's their life. And my dad always, is really proud and says, we don't have a hard time finding pickers because they like to work for our family because we pay fairly and treat people well. And that is a problem in the coffee industry, certainly in Guatemala and around the world, that pickers don't get the fair shake. And that's certainly one of my goals. And we're not there, and that's why I need to grow, is to publish end to end and to be really transparent about what that looks like, and to be really clear. I want to grow to that level right now, and I feel like it's the struggle of all small businesses, even here, even the small coffee businesses here that are even more disconnected from the land, who I think are not paying enough for the bean. I could look at myself with the same lens, and that's absolutely the goal. I think if you were to ask me, what our growth goals is, it's primarily to stabilize our processes, to invest in the farm and the people in the way that it needs to, and then hopefully amplify and grow like the abundance for all of us. It's certainly not to become like, part of the system or part of the problem.
Would you say a lot of the coffee companies out there, you say you're trying to do better compensation and pay them fairly, but is that kind of the norm, where are a lot of pickers getting fairly compensated, or does it vary from country to country, or
I think it varies from farm to farm. Okay. Yeah, I think there are a lot of good coffee businesses out there, and we could all look with like a judgmental eye, like it's complicated, and I actually view part of my role and what I hope to do and achieve is actually to have these conversations, because I think it's really important. And I am not above reproach when I talk about, like, I also like turn the critical eye to myself, and it's hard, like sustainability. What do we all deserve? What does like every human deserve? It's like a really deep and hard question. I mean, it's not hard. Like dignity, right? Healthcare. Like, don't give me a soapbox. I will, the right, the ability to raise our families in peace and comfort, some rest. We all deserve rest. That's what I hope for everybody that works for us. That's what I hope for myself. That's what I hope for my dad. And we're not there yet, and that's the hard part. And I do think that there are farms and business people, both in Guatemala, around the world, and here in Kansas City, that have that heart and are trying to do their best. And I think that there are some that really don't care and that are really just trying to extract as much as they can out of the resource and give as little back as possible. And those are people I get real mad at.
You say that some of your farmers and pickers, like, they'll work on other farms throughout the year, different harvest seasons. How do the coffee farms and coffee production, does that affect other locals or other types of farms nearby as far as culture, or does it?
Yeah, actually, it's something that I sometimes worry about a little bit. And in terms of succession for our family, I don't know what it looks like. I don't think I can do it without my brothers, and my brothers are kind of not interested. So but my dad is able to do what he does because there's trust, because he's seen as like an elder in the community. They like him. He's good. He just they're like family, and so that's why the pickers come work for him. That's why Giovanni stays. And that's kind of also why some of the other bigger farms that are around us, and there are, leave us alone. And there's like, safety concerns. Everyone, including like my cousins, carry firearms in Guatemala. In my wildest dreams, sometimes I'm like, am I really trying to take on capitalism? And am I really trying to like change these ingrained systems in Guatemala all by my little lonesome self, and it's not just myself, but, I would hope that I can build similar pathways of trust if it's going to be me there doing it. I really think, if we're honest, it's like moving to a co-op model where some of the people that actually live there year round, because my kids are here too, and that's another thing. I was there this harvest season without my kids, and I had this moment sweeping the floor where I was like, what am I doing? I just stepped into my dad's shoes, and all the pain that comes with that, like the separation and the, not ni de aquí ni de allá, is a saying, like I'm not from here nor there, feeling that comes from being an immigrant family, from managing an international business. My only hope is that we can like raise the abundance for all of us so that those pain points get easier. And I do think that looks like, the political systems and the patriarchal system in Guatemala being what it is. If we were to like turn over the deed, or, I have cousins that are ready to buy us out. They're like, we got all the fun. Like, what are you doing, Nogueras? You don't even live here. It's complicated, but I would love to see some kind of more abundant, family-centered, planet and people-centered approach, even on our farm. And I'm just like taking step by step and hope we can get there. I don't know. I have big dreams.
You said yours is relatively like smaller farm in scale. What does that look like as far as like how many people does it take you to get through like harvest and processing? Like what's kind of your staff size look like for a small
Yeah, I think
farm?
on our like busiest days we might have 8 people picking, 8 to 10 max. And it's not just coffee, I should say. My dad also has corn and black beans. We have very little sugar cane left, and bananas, which my dad is really proud of, and some other like there's some almond trees and almond. It's like paradise when it's raining enough, but that's another issue. So
You're talking about like how your coffee stands out in quality, and like you may not have that specialty brand, but you still consider like a high quality coffee.
yes.
What are kind of the factors to you that make your coffee high quality, that make it worth that higher price? How do you kind of sell that to the people buying your beans or to the customer? How would you translate that to them?
It's a really smooth, delicious cup. Some people, it's not for everybody. Some people want that like Robusta, sharp, bitter, but ours is like smooth, super easy drinking. It's also slightly lower elevation, so the acidity is lower. So I have people like breastfeeding moms who are like, or people that have like chronic stomach issues that are like, I have no problem drinking your coffee. Also, we guarantee there's no mold or pesticides. And that, we do 3 picks every year. So we're just picking the reddest beans, which we have 12,000 trees, and my dad just added 800 more. So 12,800 trees. And that's a lot. And we just care every step of the way. We also do 3 washes, and every time we get rid of the floaters, and those get sold like in Guatemala as like seconds or whatever, and we just only keep the best looking healthiest beans. And then roasting, and that's one part of our process that I didn't anticipate at all. But I love roasting, and it's my happy place every week. And I do hope to grow and like become more efficient and become like actually solvent as a business. But I hope that I never let go of that piece of it, because I just love it. And there's a skill to it and an art to it that I wasn't aware of at all when we started. I thought that it was all about the quality of the bean, and it is. But then the roasting also.
It's one small part, but then there's that roasting part there. You talked about climate change briefly. Have you noticed, you said you started about 12 years ago kind of changing kind of your business model or brand. What have you kind of noticed climate changing? How's it been affecting?
It's harder every year. My dad says this year is the first year he saw Giovanni and the people that like live there year round actually freaking out. Every other year when the rain didn't come, this year it was 8 months, no rain. The season is way later. It used to be in December. Now it's end of January, early February. It impacts our ability to forecast, just everything. Here we are, almost October, and we just got our coffee here. Now we're a little bit slower because it's just my dad and I. But that's a problem. And I know that the industry is adjusting. But 8 months, no rain. And my dad says every other year, it's delayed every year. It's getting longer every year. It's getting scarier every year. My dad is sweating buckets, in August every year. And the guys are like, I think our first rain came in July this year, I think. My dad, so not in August, I guess in June or whatever. My dad's always stressed about it. And the guys are like, don't worry, Ruben, don't worry, it's coming. Don't worry. And this was the first year he said they were like, oh, yeah, I don't know if it's coming. Like, I don't know, what are we going to do? My dad's built wells on our land. The wells dry up. It's real. It's been real. But yeah. And I'll just, while you're thinking, my dad's bananas too. I was there in February, and the banana trees were falling over. It was dry even in February, and to make it from February to late June, early July with no rain, I mean, just we don't know what anything's going to look like this year. But and one more thing about that is that my dad says that his grandpa said, I have all these sayings that he would say, is that the coffee tree is so generous that it just waits and waits and waits, and then as soon as it rains, it just like comes forth with this like beautiful abundance. But then the issue there is and that's what happened this year, is it'll rain for one day and then go 2 more weeks without rain, and that impacts the corn. I mean, I talk to any farmer; they're all feeling it.
Yeah. So have you had to change like your business based on that, or what are some challenges you've had like dealing with that or dealing with these? Were there any hard decisions you had to make to kind of overcome some of these issues, or?
Yeah, I think my dad is doing what he knows and what he can. The governing body of coffee in Guatemala is called Ana Café, and they have and I'm just like a skeptic at heart, and my dad is just doing what they say, and I'm like, you can't trust these people. So actually this year I went with a friend of mine who's a regenerative farmer and a mushroom farmer, and to look at what we can do. But Ana Café's answer right now is like different strains of beans that are more drought resistant. And, fertilizers that they recommend. And so I'm really hoping to bring in, like my friend says he wants to go back this year, we'll see, but bring in some of that. And they do, we do like undercutting. There's no, we only spray for roya, which is what everybody does. We implement some, traditional practices to keep the abundance of the land on the land and not waste, and use those resources. I'd like to see us have like chickens there. There's a lot that I think that we could grow into and do. They say where we are that Los Caulotes, our farm, is like the Eden of the area, the oasis of the area, because you can tell even just driving up, everything around it is kind of dry and ours remains green. So we're doing some things right. But yeah, so lots at the farm level. In terms of at my level, I go through, I'm about out, so I need this Houston shipment to get here. I go through it every year. Yield has been lower. It came up again this year. Last year's yield was I think 1,600 pounds. This year it's 2,000. The first year that we brought a large shipment was 3,000. So yield, and so what are we going to do if I sell out next year? There are other small farmers. Giovanni has some coffee, it's like, I'd love to start investing in the other small producers in our region.
What's the most important thing you think customers should know as far as it relates to sustainability with coffee, or the growing process, or if there's something that you could let customers know, what would that be? And do you think there's an easy way for them to access that information, or is there anything being done kind of to educate customers in general?
I think pay attention to the practices of the people that you're buying from, and it's kind of sometimes hard to tell if it's like a marketing gimmick and they have the pretty indigenous faces on the wall, but they don't have any real relationship or connection. I have a real sensitive meter for that. I'm not going to name names. I think that there are some local roasting businesses that are adding value, if either in terms of community or craft, and are not exploiting the consumer with it, and there are others that it's just like a clear marketing machine, and they're charging as much as they can but not really adding anything. There's some great local craft roasters, and again, I don't want to shame any small business practitioners. It's hard to keep a business going here. There's a lot of coffee in Kansas City now. But I think anyone who has who really is trying to stay connected to the process on the land as much as they can. Not everybody's going to have a direct connect like me. And that's probably the next area of growth for me, like in terms of being a coffee professional, which I sometimes forget that I am. I really do just feel like I'm the farmer's daughter. I'm just doing what I can, which isn't enough on any given day. But I'd love to grow in professional capacity and be able to talk like with real knowledge about importers' practices here and what their relationships look like. Not that it's my job to be the arbiter of the police of that. I don't want to do that, but I do want to. I just think it's really important, like, just for all of us to stay connected as community. And I think sometimes you can tell when people are just being extractive and exploitive. Just don't buy from those people.
So it kind of like, it sounds like you're saying just because you're like buying something that's local or that's locally roasted, should that necessarily give the consumer peace of mind that like, okay, this is ethically grown, they're what?
No,
fair trade,
I mean, there's so many.
anything like that?
Fair trade is another label. Local, small, single origin, but it's like, I think everything for me, everything goes down to relationship development. It's like, is this a person you trust and believe in? I think it's important for coffee is one of those products. And like, if I could have a relationship with a person that sells me bananas, I would, and I don't. So we're all doing the best that we can every day. I don't want anybody to feel like really guilty and bad about themselves because they're buying their coffee at Costco. And I would also challenge you can have a better tasting cup and you can feel better about yourself every morning or like 20% of your coffee consumption is like investing in my family business, please, or like, I think there are some local roasters who are really trying to do their best, and they're also investing in their community here in Kansas City. I mean, it's just like, who do you want to be in business with? Not just only around coffee, but like, are they good people? and are they investing, or are they just here to like put some marketing shine on it so that they can make a buck?
It's kind of hard because you're taking on all this extra work, all these extra steps to be that high standard, hold you to that high standard, but then that doesn't necessarily translate to the consumer, and it makes your job more difficult.
Totally. I will also just say, like, go like shop at farmers markets. We should all be trying to go to a farmer's market every week. It's really important. So like, invest in local farmers, do what you can, and don't like beat yourself up for being imperfect, because none of us created the system. So we're all just doing our best. If we're doing our best, we're doing our best. We could all probably do a little better. I don't know.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to open it up for questions to the audience, some questions you guys might have. Once again, Erica Noguera of Dona Fina Cafe. Thanks for being here with us today and telling your story.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Let's open it up for questions in the audience. You guys have any questions you want to ask Erica about? Yes, here we go. Hey, hang on, I'll come to you, and we're going to get it. It's all on the record.
Okay. Will you describe the name or the story behind the name that you gave your coffee?
Yeah.
Great question.
My great-grandma's name was Delfina, and people called her Dona Fina. Dona's like an honorific, like lady, and Fina was her nickname. So Dona Fina is my great-grandma. Yeah.
That's a great question.
Okay, so this may be a cost barrier question. So we're all told here in the United States to look for certifications on coffee and this, that, and the other thing. But there's oftentimes for the producer, you have to jump through hoops. You have to pay a certain amount of money or get third-party certification if you're doing X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
So talk about the cost-benefit ratio of those sort of certifications for a small operation like yours.
For us, it hasn't made any sense. Again, like my dad is maxed at his effort level. I have been so far as well, as a mom with 2 kids, and I still work part-time in a nonprofit context, but that's our growth edge, maybe. I believe that we qualify as organic standards. I think I just need to, and that's part of like bringing my farmer friend with us this last year so that he could look and say, the one piece there is that our fertilizer, so we only spray for Roya. We don't, so we know we qualify there. We don't do anything other kind of spraying. Is the fertilizer issue, and the way that you can get through that is if you've tried all other sources and the only source that's available in your area is this one source, which is true for us, then you qualify as organic. So then we can say with full honesty, we're organic. Now, jumping through the USDA hoops and the cost of that is not on the horizon for us. So I don't market ours as organic yet, but we are, I mean, ours is pesticide free for sure. The fertilizer piece. Yeah. And then, same for fair trade, all of that. It's like, you can pay for it. You can be a giant conglomerate and have one farm that's doing it this way, get the certification, and then use that for all of your branding. So, yeah.
So, Erica, a follow-up to that is what you're telling us with your story, there's probably other small local farms there that are in the same boat as you, where they're pretty much following those practices that maybe could qualify for those certifications, but they're just not able to put those labels on their products.
Same. And it's same for local farmers here, it's absolutely the same. So
for the consumer, that's a really good message, right? I mean, it's great to see those labels in one sense, but just because you don't see the label doesn't mean, that it's a product that, if you're trying to be a sustainable consumer, that it wouldn't be a good thing to buy.
Yeah, and I think it is just about being mindful, like anything that you're buying, especially farm product. Just do a couple of extra clicks on a website, and you can sometimes tell. Some places are tricky, but you can tell, oftentimes if they're in it for the right reasons and they're in it for the right practices and doing their best.
Other questions, folks? Yes.
Are there any local coffee shops that carries your beans?
So, great question.
Great outro to
that has
what we
been
have over here.
a challenge. Short answer is no. Right now, I'm in talks with some people that want to carry ours wholesale. Casey Farm School sells my beans at their market every week. And that's because they just let me have my Venmo out, and people can Venmo me directly. So that has made the most sense for me. I have a couple of wholesale relationships like Origin Restaurant in Lawrence. They are amazing. They grow everything there. They do all the butchering. They just like similar like values and vibe. So I'm happy to sell my beans at a wholesale cost to them, because like they're doing the same. We're in it together. Yeah. But if you want to buy my beans, you can buy them online. And right now I'm still delivering, although that's got to change soon. I'm delivering like within a small radius. Otherwise I can ship them. You can also like buy online and arrange to do pickup if you don't want to buy shipping or pay shipping. So.
And you've got some of your products here today with
Yes.
you, right? Excellent.
Please.
Good deal.
Try. And I actually brought some samples too. So I don't know where it is, but I can pull it out. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. Awesome. And that is my medium dark. It's mostly dark. It's like a mix of medium and dark, but yeah.
Other questions, folks? Oh, right here. Nope.
So you mentioned that water acquisition was starting to become a concern. So ocean desalination is not a thing that is done, but how much would you be willing to spend if you could guarantee pure ocean water compared to how much you have to spend now for sustainable sources like well water?
I don't know. We're like operating on a very small margin. So, but yeah, I think these are questions we all have to wrestle with, right? As we move forward into the future of like rising sea levels and stuff. I don't have the answer. I think water is really important.
But you would like to see things like that, I assume.
Yeah, I would love to see us do better and smarter with all of our resources. I don't know enough about it.
Well, the main reason it's not done is because it's cost prohibitive at the moment.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it's not done. It's cheaper to ship water from springs in Fiji and bottle it than it is to desalinate water in your home country. That's why Fiji water still exists.
Interesting. Yeah, water's a problem. Water is a problem.
So, as Gen Z enters the workforce and things, do you see a reduction in the amount of like traditional fincas?
Yeah. I mean, every year my dad is like, I don't know, but everyone's leaving. Life is really hard everywhere, but every year, my dad knows several farmers around them that their coffee went to waste because they couldn't find anyone to pick them. And luckily, we always have people that are willing to work for my dad, but it's a struggle. And and tons of land that's just going untended because, I mean, it's getting harder, it's drier, everything's harder. Yeah.
With that in mind, Erica, you talked about the cost of good, quality coffee that is grown sustainably with the ethics of the people in mind. So your prediction, I mean, coffee prices aren't going to be going down anytime soon. They're going to be going up.
Thank you for bringing that. That's us. I super struggle. Right now, there's one price on my site. I'm selling bags for $20 now in person. I've struggled to raise my prices, and then there's like other big business coffee people out there that charge $22 and don't bat an eye, for a 12-ounce bag. And I'm just like, but the consumer, like, I don't want to price out I don't want to price out myself. If I had to pay what I'm asking for coffee every day, like, it's tough. But also, like, I'm not making it, what are we going to do? I don't know. I don't know how to solve for it. I think community care, for me, it's about like connection to what gives me hope moving forward in my own life is like staying connected to the abundance of the land. The land, even without, like my dad says, the coffee plant is so generous. Like if I can stay in that flow and in that mindset, then, and I just do what feels right, and I try to trust myself. And so charging 20 feels right. I need to adjust up my wholesale price from like 13, which is ridiculous. But it's hard. It hurts my heart every time I do it because I'm not a natural business person. And some people are, and like I feel like I need to adopt more of that mindset, but then I'm like, I'm no better than those dirty capitalists. Sorry. I don't have the answer. But yes, prices are going up. My prices need to go up. And it doesn't feel good. But that's just the reality. And it's going to keep, unless we figure something out really quick, you know, which is another reason to just like do better, like support your local farmers. Go to a farmer's market. Buy my coffee and go to the farmer's market.
All right. All right. Any other questions as we wrap up? Yeah, one more back here.
Thanks. You might have already answered this since I had to come in a bit late, but I was wondering if you had, since you were speaking of dirty capitalists, do you have any thoughts about how the future of coffee farm ownership and compensation structures is going to look like? It's obviously such a small margin business. It's very difficult to competitively pay workers and give them working conditions that are actually, moral.
Yeah.
And there's cooperatives and direct farmer ownership, but they're of course competing with major corporations, and it's quite difficult. So
exactly. I hope to like become sustainable and invest in the land and do some of the things that I think we can do there farming wise to make things easier and more abundant from everybody that works there. And then I think secondarily to that, it's that conversation that I want to get better at having. And I think I can only do it honestly and authentically and with some authority once I figure out how to do it for ourselves. And we haven't yet. I mean, we do our best. And none of us are making enough. None of us, but we do our best, and that is our intention. And we treat everyone with kindness, and I try to only work with people that operate that way, that believe in abundance and that are reaching for the best and that care, that are willing to develop a heart connection for me. I'm not for everyone, I'm just not. And some people aren't going to get it, and that's okay. But I care about heart, and craft and care and community care above everything else. And I hope that collectively together, if we just wrap our arms around each other, if we joke with my friends here all the time, we just need to go in on a piece of land and everybody build a yurt. And because don't get me started. These individual family units don't make any sense, right? So I don't know how to fix it all today, but that's the direction I'd like to move. And I just hope to do better.
The cooperative is the key, I guess.
Yeah, the cooperative, the community, just connection to source, source energy, the land, the people, spirit, if you want to go there.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're at time. So Erica Noguera, thank you so much for being here. Please take a look at her products. She's got some of her coffee here for you guys to buy, and of course more to sample. For everybody else, come back next week, because next week we wrap up this 3-part series. Chef Nick will have coffee cupping right here. You get to sample coffee with the expert. The QR code, if you zap that with your phone, you can sign up. Do we? We had
about 7 spots open before we started this presentation, so there's only about 7 spots left.
7 spots that were still remaining before we started. Who knows how many still remain? So click it as soon as you can and get your spot reserved. And we'll see you next week. Nick and I are putting together a study away trip to Costa Rica centered on coffee, but also centered on cacao. So if you don't know what cacao is, that is the botanical product that is turned into chocolate. We're going to be hosting another 3-part series with the gracious input from Jody Seitz, who runs the CoLab here, also with Ann Daughter, who runs the honors program. Those folks have helped make this possible. So come back next spring. We'll be doing similar talks centered around chocolate production.